Well, greetings. Do you ever feel that you're living in a sort of Alice in Wonderland environment? When you see these thousands upon thousands every week, people arriving at Dover in boats, all between the ages of 19 and 30, males, arriving, being put into hotels, given medical care, and generally looked after at vast expense of billions and billions of pounds. They're being picked up by the Royal National Lifeboat Institution within a few thousand yards of the French coast, likewise by the Border Patrol people, escorted sometimes halfway across the Channel by the French Navy. Now, some people think it's just incompetence and stupidity. Well, it isn't, you know. It's World Economic Forum policy, it's UN policy, and it's for a reason. The more of these people come in, the more you can break down society. And this is what they're trying to do. And it's not just here. My friends tell me the same is happening in Canada and America and various other places, Ireland in particular. So this is a deliberate WEF policy, and it's not a conspiracy theory, for goodness sake. Just look up the World Economic Forum and see who's speaking at these places, at Davos and so on and so forth. We have a Prime Minister now who is a World Economic Forum sponsor. He's an agent of World Economic Forum. He makes no apology for it. He's there every year talking up the book. We now have a king, King Charles III, who's the same. He speaks on a World Economic Forum platform. It's absolutely crazy. And don't think that whether you vote Conservative or Labour, it's got anything to do with anything at all. It hasn't. Because we're not controlled by our own parliament, and we haven't been for years. And a Remainer said to me once when I was in the Brexit campaign, it was quite interesting, he said, you know, you don't think you've won anything, take back control, that you're going to run your own country again. Most of this comes from outside the European Union, most of it's international, most of it's UN, most of it's IMF, most of it's WEF, and of course he's right. We have an energy crisis, don't we? Energy is shooting up. We have 100 years of natural gas under the ground in this country, but we're not digging it out because they don't want us to. It's implicit that they want expensive energy for us. Otherwise, we'd bring it out. Fracking, the terrible word fracking, this isn't a new system. It's been going on for years in Russia and America, perfectly legitimate, with much less interference on the ground than the old coal mines used to have, and I live in a coal mining area with subsidence, so on and so forth. It's all quite deliberate. We've seen, have we not, an election in Brazil just recently where one of the most popular presidents of Brazil in history has suddenly been voted out. I don't know why, I don't know how that happened, nobody knows why that happened, it's weird. We saw Trump, who was very popular, love him or hate him, was suddenly voted out by somebody who should be really in an old people's home. How did that happen? There was scallywaggery there. And we know it's starting again with the midterms. Look at Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania now have issued over 250,000 voting tickets with no ID procedure. All right? So it's going to happen again, where there's going to be probably a Democrat returned, against the will of the people. Nobody much likes him out there. I've got lots of friends there, but he'll probably win because of jiggery-pokery in the voting system. It keeps going on. Holland, they're destroying Holland. The World Economic Forum under Mark Rutte is destroying Holland. He's killing their agricultural export, which is how the country lives. It's how the country lives. We've seen energy policies and policies by the Washington neocons, the industrial military conflicts, virtually deindustrializing Germany. Germany had a trade loss last year, and it's going to get worse because they've got no energy. And we have to have this charade, don't we, who blew up the pipe? Well, come on, everybody. Joe Biden said he was going to blow up the pipe, and they blew up the pipe. Let's stop pretending this nonsense that it was anybody else. It was the Americans with complicit Swedish and British governments, I suspect. We don't know everything yet, but you don't need the brains of an archbishop, do you, to understand who gains from this? Who's now going to sell us energy? The Americans. And now we can't get Russian energy. We're sending billions. This little country is sending billions to the Ukraine. The Americans have sent £68 billion to the Ukraine. We don't know where it goes. It's unaudited. It goes into the hands of one of the most corrupt governments in Europe. And don't take my word for it. Just have a look at 18 months ago, the Guardian's front page line on it. Ukraine is corrupt. We don't know where it's going. We seem to have people who were terrified of COVID, where there was a 99% recovery rate if you were reasonably fit. 99%, all right? And they were terrified of getting COVID. They wore masks all the time, even when they were walking on the beach. These terrified people now seem to be totally relaxed about a nuclear war. Do you want to go to a nuclear war? Do you want war with Russia for the sake of the Ukraine? Of course you don't. But our politicians, the neocons and the industrial military complex and the big banks seem to think that's okay. And the funny thing is, nobody really seems to care. I'm still connected in the city. I still go down to the city. I speak to youngsters there, friends of mine. They're not interested. They don't care. They're not interested. They're making lots of bucks, and that's fine. They're making lots of money. Don't want to be bothered with politics. Don't let's talk politics tonight when we're in the pub. No, okay, don't let's talk politics. But it is politics. It's your life. It's your future. That is politics. And nobody seemed to care. So I live in a rural community. I spoke to a monster landowner the other day, a very nice guy who meets his responsibilities as a very big rural landowner. And I mentioned the World Economic Forum. He'd never heard of it. He'd never heard of it. Now we're getting massive demonstrations against NATO in Italy, in Germany, in France, just not covered by mainstream media. It's just blanked. It seems incredible to me that mainstream media have totally abrogated their responsibilities. We have excess deaths now from experimental spike protein. Thousands and thousands. And mainstream media simply aren't covering it. It seems to me that the only investigative journalist we've had in years now is Julian Assange. And he's still banged up without habeas corpus, quite illegally under our own constitution. These people get away with this because 80% of the population is supine, asleep, gullible, stupid. In all the democracies, 80%, I reckon, 80% of the people in America and North America and Europe are just too stupid to wake up. Now, I know I'm preaching to the choir probably because you're probably already one of my followers and you know. But if you try and mention all this to a neighbour, they just think you're a swivel-eyed lunatic. And it's happening in front of their eyes. I don't know what to do. I've written an article called The Age of Unreason on my website. You might like to have a look at it and read it. And doesn't have any answers, but it's got some significant questions. Anyway, good luck with that. Sorry about the rant, but I feel just in despair at the moment. As most of you know, my work is very heavily independently research-based. And I get my information from all over the world. It would help if you press the subscribe button and the little bell next to it, because the more subscribers I have, the more likely it is that international independent research institutes will share their material with me. It's most helpful, and then of course I automatically share it with you. So, surprise, won't cost you anything. Thank you very much.